Quo Vadis by Henrik Sienkiewicz. Petronius woke only about midday, and as usually greatly wearied. The evening before he had been at one of Nero's feasts, which was prolonged till late at night. For some time his health had been failing. He said himself that he woke up benumbed, as it were, and without power of collecting his thoughts. But the morning bath and careful kneading of the body by trained slaves hastened gradually the course of his slothful blood, rose him, quickened him, restored his strength, so that he issued from the allostesium, that is, the last division of the bath, as if he had risen from the dead, with eyes gleaming from wit and gladness, rejuvenated, filled with life, exquisite, so unapproachable that Otto himself could not compare with him, and was really that which he had been called, arbiter elegantiarium. He visited the public bath rarely, only when some rhetor happened there who roused admiration and who was spoken of in the city, or when the Ephebias there were combats of exceptional interest. Moreover, he had in his own insula private baths which Celer, the most famous contemporary of Severus, had extended for him, reconstructed and arranged with such uncommon taste that Nero himself acknowledged their excellence over those of the emperor, though the imperial baths were more extensive, and finished with incomparably greater luxury. After that feast, at which he was bored by the jesting of Vatinius with Nero, Lucan, and Seneca, he took part in a diatribe as to whether a woman has a soul. Rising late, he used, as was his custom, the baths. Two enormous balneators laid him on a cypress table, covered with snow-white Egyptian byssus, and with hands dipped in perfumed olive oil began to rub his shapely body, and he waited with closed eyes till the heat of the laconicum and the heat of their hands passed through him and expelled weariness. But after a certain time he spoke, and opening his eyes, he inquired about the weather, and then about gems which the jewel Idomeneus had promised to send him for examination that day. It appeared that the weather was beautiful, with a light breeze from the Alban hills, and that the gems had not been brought. Petronius closed his eyes again, and had given command to bear him to the tepidarium, when from behind the curtain that nomenclator looked in, announcing that the young Marcus Vinicius, recently returned from Asia Minor, had come to visit him. Petronius ordered to admit the guest to that tepidarium, to which he was borne himself. Vinicius was the son of his older sister, who years before had married Marcus Vinicius, a man of consular dignity from the time of Tiberius. The young man was serving then under Corbulo against the Parthians, and at the close of the war had returned to the city. Petronius had for him a certain weakness bordering on attachment, for Marcus was beautiful and athletic, a young man who knew how to preserve a certain aesthetic measure of his profligacy. This Petronius prized above everything. "A greeting to Petronius," said the young man, entering the tepidarium, with a springy step. "May all the gods grant thee success, but especially Asclepius and Cripes, for under the double protection nothing evil can meet one. I greet thee in Rome, and may thy rest be sweet after war," replied Petronius, extending his hand from between the folds of the soft stuff in which he was wrapped. "What's to be heard in Armenia? or since thou wert in Asia, didst thou no stumble into Bithynia? Petronius on a time had been proconsul in Bithynia, and what is more, he had governed with energy and justice. This was a marvelous contrast in the character of a man noted for effeminacy and love of luxury, and hence he was found of mentioning those times, as they were a proof of what he had been, and of what he might have become had it pleased him. I happened to visit Heraclea, answered Vinicius. Corbulo sent me there with other to assemble reinforces. Ah, Heraclea! I knew at Heraclea a certain maiden from Colchis, for which I will have given all divorced women of this city, not excluding Poppa. But these are old stories. Tell me now, rather, what is to be heard from the Parthian boundary. Is it true that they weary me every Vologeses of them, and Tiridates and Tirigranes, those barbarians who as young Arulianos insist walk on all fours at home and pretend to be human, only in our presence. But now people in Rome speak much of them, if only for the reason that it is dangerous to speak aught else. The war is going badly, but with Corbulo might be turned to defeat. Corbulo, by Bacchus, a real god of war, a genuine Mars, a great leader, at the same time quick-tempered, honest, and dull. I love him, even for this, that Nero is not afraid of him. Corbulo is not a dull man. Perhaps thou art right, but for that matter it is all one. Dullness, as Pyrrho says, is in no way worse than wisdom, and differs from it in nothing. Vinicius began to talk of the war, but when Petronius closed his eyes again, the young man, seeing his uncle's tired and somewhat emaciated face, changed the conversation and inquired in a certain interest about his health. Petronius opened his eyes again. Health? No. He did not feel well. He had not gone so far yet, it is true, a young Cicena, who had lost sensation to such a degree that when he was brought to the bath in the morning he inquired, "Am I sitting?" But he was not well. Vinicius had just committed him to the care of Asclepius and Crippis, but he, Petronius, did not believe in Asclepius. It was not known even whose son that Asclepius was, the son of Arsinoe or Corinis, and if the mother was doubtful, what was to be said of the father, who in that time could be sure who his own father was? Who in that time could be sure who his own father was? Indeed. Hereupon Petronius began to laugh. Then he continued, 2 years ago, it is true, I sent to Epidaurus 3 dozen of blackbirds and a goblet of gold. But dost thou know why? I said to myself, whether this helps or not, it will do me no harm. Though people make offerings to the gods, yet I believe that all think as I do, all with the exception perhaps of mule drivers hired at the Porta Capena by travelers. Besides Asclepius, I have had dealings with sons of Asclepius. When I was troubled a little last year in the bladder, they performed an incubation for me. I saw that they were tricksters, but I said to myself, what harm? The world stands on deceit, and life is an illusion. The soul is an illusion too, but one must have reason enough to distinguish pleasant from painful illusions. I shall give command to burn in my hypocaustum cedar wood sprinkled with ambergris. For during life I prefer perfumes to stenches, as to Crippis, to whom thou hast also confined me. I have known her wardenship to the extent that I one have twins in my right foot. But as to the rest, she is a good goddess. I suppose that thou wilt bear sooner or later white doves to her altar. True, answered Vinicius, the arrows of the Parthians have not reached my body, but a dart of amor has struck me, unexpectedly, a few stadia from a gate of the city. By the white knees of the Graces, thou wilt tell me if this at a leisure hour. I have come purposely to get thy advice, answered Marcus. But at what moment the epilators came and occupied themselves with Petronius. Marcus, throwing aside his tunic, entered a bath of tepid water, for Petronius invited him to plunge bath. I have not even asked whether thy feeling is reciprocate, said Petronius, looking at the youthful body of Marcus, which was as if cut out of marble. Had Lysippus seen thee, thou wouldst of ornamenting now the gate leading to the Palatine, as a statue of Hercules in youth. The young man smiled with satisfaction, and he began to sink in the bath, splashing warm water abundantly on the mosaic which represented Hera at the moment when she was imploring sleep to lull Zeus to the rest. Petronius looked at him with the satisfied eye of an artist. When Vinicius had finished and yielding himself in turn to the epilators, a lecturer came with a bronze tube at his breast and rolls of the paper in the top. Thus wished to listen, asked Petronius. If it is thy creation, gladly, answered the young tribune. If not, I prefer conversation. Poet-size people are present on every street corner. Of course they do. Thou wilt not pass any basilica, bath, library, or bookshop without seeing a poet gesticulating like a monkey. Agrippa, on coming here from the east, mistook them for madmen, and it is just such a time now. Caesar writes verses, hence all follow on his steps. Only it is not permitted to write better verses than Caesar, and for that reason I fear a little of our Lucan. But I write prose, with which, however, I do not honor myself or others. What the lecturer has to read are the codicilli of that poor Fabricius Veiento. Why poor? Because it had been communicated to him that he must dwell in Odessa, and not return to his domestic heart till he receives new command. That Odyssey would be not easier for him than Ulysses, since his wife not Penelope. I need not to tell thee, for that matter, that he acted stupidly, but here no one takes things otherwise than superficially. He is rather a wrench and dull little book, which little people have begun to read passionately only when the author is vanished. Now one hears on every side, "Scandala, scandala," and it may be that Veiento invited some things, but I, who know the city, know the patres and our women, assure thee that it is all paler than reality. Meanwhile, every man is searching the book for himself with alarm, for his acquaintances with delight. At the bookshop of Avernus, 100 copyists are writing at dictation, and his success is assured. Are not thy affairs in it? They are, but the author is mistaken, for I am at once worse and less flat than he represents me. Seest thou we have lost long since the feeling of what is worthy and or unworthy, and to me even it seems that in real truth there is no difference between them, though Seneca, Musonius, and Trasca pretend that they see it. To me it is all one. By Hercules, I say what I think. I have preserved loftiness, however, because I know what is the form and what is beautiful. But our poet, Bronzebeard, for example, the charioteer, the singer, the actor, does not understand this. I am sorry, however, for Fabricius. He is a good companion. Vanity ruined the man. Every one suspected him, no one knew certainly, but he could not contain himself, and told the secret on all sides in confidence. Hast heard the history of Rufinus? Then come to the Frigidarium to call, that I will tell thee. They passed to the Frigidarium, in the middle of which played a fountain of bright rose color, emitting an odor of violets. There they sat in niches, strained for a time. Vinicius looked a while thoughtfully at the bronze faun which, bending over an arm of a nymph, was seeking her lips eagerly with his lips. He is right, said the young man, that is what is best in life, more or less. But besides this, thou lovest war, for which I have no liking, since under tens one's fingernails break and cease to be rosy. For that matter, every man has his preference. Bronze Bicard, love song, especially his own, and all Scaurus, his Corinthian vase, which stands near his bed at night, and which he kisses when he cannot sleep. He has kissed the age of off already. Tell me, dost thou now write verses? No, I have never composed a single hexameter. And dost thou not play the lute or sing? No. And dost thou drive a chariot? I tried once in Antioch, but unsuccessfully. Then I am at rest concerning thee, and to what party in the hippodrome dost thou belong? To the Greens. Now I am perfectly at rest, especially since thou hast a large property indeed, though thou art is not so rich as Pallas or Seneca. For since thou with us at present is well to write verses, is to sing, to allude, to declaim, and to compete in the circus, but better and specially safer not to write verse, and not to play, not to sing, and not to compete in the circus. Best of all, it is to know how to admire when Bronzebeard admires, and thou art a comely young man. Hence Popsa may fall in love with thee. This is thy only peril. But no, she is too experienced. She cares for something else. She has had enough of love with her two husbands. With the third she has other views. Dost thou know that that stupid Otto loves her yet to distraction? He walks on the cliffs of Spain and sighs. He has so lost his former habits, has so ceased to care for his person, that 3 hours of each day suffice him to dress his hair. Could have expected this of Otto? I understand him, answered Vinicius, but in his place I should have done something else. What, namely? Should have enrolled faithful legions of mountaineers of that country. There are good soldiers, those Iberians. Vinicius, I almost wish to tell thee that thou wouldst not have been capable of that. And knowest why? Such things are done, but they are not mentioned even conditionally. As to me in place, I should have laughed at Popra, laughed at Bronzebeard, and formed myself legions, not of Iberian men, however, but Iberian women. And what is more, I should have written epigrams which I shall not have read to anyone, not like that poor Rufinus. Though were to tell me his story, I will tell it in the Auditorium. But in the Auditorium the attention of Vinicius was turned to another objects, namely, two wonderful slave women who were waiting for the bathers. Two of them Africans, resembled noble statues of ebony, began to anoint their bodies with delicate perfumes from Arabia. Others Phrygians, skilled with hairdressing, held in their hands which were bending and flexible as serpents, combs and mirrors of polished steel. Two Grecian maidens from Kos, who were simply like deities, waiting as vestiplic, till the moment should come to put statuesque falls in the togas of the lords. But the cloud scattering Zeus, said Marcus Vinicius, what a choice thou hast. I prefer choice to numbers, answered Petronius. My whole familia in Rome does not exceed 400, and I judge that personal attendance only upstarts need a greater number of people. More beautiful bodies even bronze beer does not possess, said Vinicius, distending his nostrils. Thou art my relative, answered Petronius with a certain friendly indifference, and I am neither so misanthropic as Barsus nor such pedant as Aulus Plautius. When Vinicius heard this last name, he forgot the maidens from Cos for a moment, and raising his head vivaciously inquired, whence did Aulus Plautius come to thy mind? Dost thou know that after I had disjointed my arm outside the city, I passed a number of days in his house? It happened that Plautius came up at the moment when the accident happened, and seeing that I was suffering greatly, he took me to his house. There a slave of his, a physician, Merion, restored me to health. I wish to speak with thee touching this very matter. Why? It is because thou hast fallen in love with Pomponia, perchance? In that case I pity thee. She is not young, she is virtuous. I cannot imagine a worse combination. Bah! Not with Pomponia, answered Vinicius. With whom then? If I know it myself, with whom, but I do not know to ascertain her name even, Ligia or Calina. They call her Ligia in the house, for she comes from Lygian nation, but she was her own barbarian name, Calina. It is a wonderful house, that those of Plautius's. There were many people in it, but it's quite there the groves of Subiacum. For a number of days I did not know that a divinity dwelled in that house. Once about daybreak I saw her bathing in the garden fountain, and I swear to thee by that foam from which Aphrodite rose, that the rays of the dawn passed right through her body. I thought that when the sun rose she would vanish before me in the light, as the twilight morning does. Since then I have seen her twice, and since then too I know that what rest is. I know not what other desires are. I have no wish to know what the city can give me. I want neither women nor gold, nor Corinthian bronze, nor amber, nor pearls, nor wine, nor feasts. I want only Ligia. I am yearning for her in sincerity, I tell thee, Petronius, as that dream who is imagined on the mosaic of thy tepidarium yearn for Pasitia, whose days and night do I yearn. If she is a slave, then purchase her. She is not a slave. What is she, a freed woman of Plautius? Never having been a slave, she cannot be freed woman. Who is she? I know not. A king's daughter or something of that sort. Thou dost rouse my curiosity, Vinicius. But if thou wish to listen, I will satisfy thy curiosity straight away. Her story is not a long one. Thou art acquainted, perhaps personality, with Vanius, king of Sauvi, who, expelled from his country, spent a long time here in Rome, and became even famous for his skilful play with dice, and his good driving of chariots. Drusus put him on the throne again. Vanius, who was really a strong man, ruled well at first and warred with success afterward. However, he began to scheme not only his neighbors, but his own suevi too much. Thereupon Banglo and Sido, two sister sons of his, and the sons of Vibilius, king of Hermundiri, determined to force him to Rome again, to try his luck there at Dice. I remember that is of recent Glaudonian times. Yes, war broke out. Vannius summoned to his aid the Iasigi, his dear nephews called in the Lycians, who hearing the riches of Vannius and enticed by the hope of booty, came in such number that Caesar himself, Claudius, began to fear for safety of the boundary. Claudius did not wish to interfere in a war among barbarians, but wrote to Atelius Hister, who commanded legions of the Danube, to turn watchful eye on the course of the war, and not permit them to disturb our peace. Hister required then that the legions a promise not to cross the boundary. To this they did not agree, but gave hostages, among whom were the wife and daughter of their leader. It is known to thee that barbarians take their wives and children to war with them. My Lygia is the daughter of that leader. Whence dost thou know all this? Aulus Plautius told it himself. The Lygians did not cross the boundary, indeed, but barbarians come and go like a tempest. So did the Lygians vanish, and with their wild ox horns on their heads. They killed Vannius Suevity and Iasigi, but their own king fell. They disappeared with their booty, and the hostages remained in Hister's hands. The mother died soon after, and Hister, not knowing what to do with the daughter, sent her to Pomponius, the governor of all Germany. He, at the close of the war with Catti, returned to Rome, where Claudius, as is known to thee, permitted him to have triumph. A maiden on that occasion walked after the car of the conqueror, but at the end of solemnity, since hostages cannot be considered captives, and since Pomponius did not know what to do with her definitely, he gave her to his sister Pomponia, the wife of Plautius. In that house were all, beginning with the masters and ending with the poultry in the hen house, are virtues. That maiden grew up as virtuous, alas, as Grexina herself, and so beautiful that even Pompeii, if near her, could seem like an autumn fig near an apple of the Asperigrus. And what? And I repeat to thee that from that moment when I saw how the sun rays of that fountain passed through her body, I fell in love to distraction. She is as transparent as a lamprey eel, then a youthful sardine. Yes, not Petronius, but in the freedom with which I speak of my desire misleads thee. Now this, that bright garments frequently cover deep wounds. I must tell thee, too, that while returning from Asia I slept one night in the temple of Mopsus to have a prophetic dream. Well, Mopsus appeared in a dream to me and declared that, through love, a great change in my life will take place. Pliny declares, as I hear, that he does not believe in the gods, but he believes in dreams. Perhaps he is right. My jests do not prevent me from thinking at times that in truth there is only one deity, eternal, creative, all-powerful, Venus Genetrix. She brings souls together, she unites bodies and things. Eros called the world of chaos. Whether he did well is another question, but since he did so, he should recognize his might, though we are free not to bless it. Alas, Praetorianus, it is easier to find philosophy in the world than wise counsel. Tell me, what is thy wish specially? I wish to have Lygia, I wish that these arms of mine, which now embrace only air, might embrace Lygia and press her to my bosom. I wish to breathe with her breath, where she a slave will give Aulus for her 100 maidens with feet with lime as a sign that they were exhibited on sale for the first time. I wish to have her in my house till my head is as white as the top of the Soracte in winter. She is not a slave, but she belongs to the family of Plautius, and since she is the servant maiden, she might be considered an alumna. Plautius might yield her to thee if he wished. Then it seems that thou knowest not Pomponia, Graecina, both have become as much attached to her as she were their own daughter. Pomponia I know, a real cypress. If she were not the wife of Aulus, she might be engaged as a mourner. Since the death of Julius, she has not thrown aside dark robes, and in general she looks as if, while still alive, she were walking on an asphodel meadow. She is moreover one-man woman. Hence, among our ladies of 4 and 5 divorces, she is straightway a phoenix. But hast thou heard that in Upper Egypt the phoenix has just been hatched out, as it said? An event which happens not often, than once in 5 centuries. Petronius, let us talk of the phoenix some other time. What shall I tell thee, my Marcus? I know Aulus Plautius, who, though he blames my mode of life, has for me a certain weakness, and even respects me, perhaps more than others, for he knows that I have never been an informer like Domitius, after Tigelius, and a whole rabble of Aenobarbus inmates. Without pretending to be stoic, I have been offended more than once at the acts of Nero, which Seneca and Burrus looked at through their fingers. If it is thy thought that I might do something for thee with Aulus, I am at thy command. I judge that thou hast the power, thou hast influence over him, and besides thy mind possesses inexhaustible resources. If thou were to survey the position and speak with Plautius, thou hast too great an idea of my influence and wit. But if that is the only question, I will talk with Plautius as soon as they return to the city. They return 2 days since. In that case, let us go to the triclinium, where a meal is now ready, and when we have refreshed ourselves, let us give command to bear us to Plautius. Thou art ever being kind to me, answered Vinicius with vivacity. But now I shall give command to rear thy statue among my lairs, just such a beauty as this one, and I will place offering before it. Then he returned toward the statues with ornament one entire wall of the perfume chamber, and pointed to the one which represented Petronius as Hermes, with a staff in his hand, he added, By the light of Helios, if the godlike Alexander resembled thee, I do not wonder at Helen. And in the exclamation there was so much sincerity as flattery, for Petronius, thought older and less athletic, was more beautiful than even Vinicius. The women of Rome admired not only his plain mind, but his taste, which gained for him the title Arbiter Elegantiae, but also his body. His admiration was evident even on the faces of those maidens from Cos who were arranging the folds of his toga, and one of whose name was Eunice, loving him in secret, looked him in the eyes with submission and rapture. But he did not even notice this, and smiling at Vinicius, he quoted in answer an expression of Seneca about woman, animal input ends, etc. And then placing an arm on the shoulders of his nephew, he conducted him to the triclinium. In the unctorium, the two Grecian maidens, the Phrygians, and the two Ethiopians began to put away the vessels with perfumes. But at that moment, and beyond the curtain of the frigidarium, appeared the heads of the halnitors, and Lopes was heard. At that call, one of the Grecians and Phrygians and the Ethiopians sprang up quickly and vanished in a twinkle behind the curtain. In the baths began a moment of license which the inspector did not prevent, for he took frequent part in such frolics himself. Petronius suspected that they took place, but as soon as a prudent man and one who did not like to punish, he looked at them through his fingers. In the unctorium only Eunice remained. She listened for a short time the voices and laughter which retreated in the direction of the Laconicum. At last she took the stool inlaid with amber and ivory on which Petronius had been sitting a short time before, and put it carefully at his statue. The unctorium was full of sunlight, and the hues which came from the many-colored marbles with which the wall was faced. Eunice stood on the stool, and finding herself at the level of the statue, cast her arm suddenly around his neck. Then throwing back her golden hair, and pressing her rosy body to the white marble, she pressed her lips with ecstasy to the cold lips of Petronius.